Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. And today we're going to get directly into it. Um, I have been unable to leave this movie alone, and this will directly impact our ability here on this channel dealing with tabletop role playing games and specifically hard science fiction and world building about a recent movie known as Civil War, released in 2024 here in April. And we're going to show world building maps and hopefully delve into the um, a few words, few descriptions, but much of the movie as listening to many people who have seen this movie and feel that there are problems with it, that we as world builders um, should learn from this movie, and the fact that the less said about a particular historic event or situations that lead up to our current events says a lot more about us and our reactions and our characters who we are following than it does about the actual quality and details in the movie itself. And of course, this is going to relate to us specifically about Obsidian Star, a hard sci-fi tabletop role-playing game that we're working on here on this channel. So all of that will be combined. So we're not getting rid of one, but we're going to talk about all of it. Yeah. Caligula says a utopian fantasy. Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So our co-hosts, of course, those who participate live are the co-hosts. I'm going to go over a few of their comments, and then we will get into some of the imagery and, dare I say, some of the controversy, but not in the way that you're thinking. For me, the controversy is that there are elements of the movie, major swaths of the movie that people are glancing over. That is the point of the movie, where others are saying that either the movie doesn't explain anything, or it's boring, or it doesn't have a point. And I totally disagree, and I will give you my points. But let's see what our co-hosts have to say. Yeah, Deadman says the movie displays the prime problem uh, with MSM reporters. Do you mean like embedded reporters? Yeah, they operate on a singular thought: get the shot, never stay safe, or do what the police need you to do. Um, that's kind of their purpose, though, right? And obnoxiously in the movie, they do kind of get in the way. But embedded reporters are there. You're going to not find that, just like the people they're following are, we're following main characters, and a lot of people are making decisions in their own right based on what they believe is the right thing to do. Yeah. Yeah, they always impose themselves in the middle of the action. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Fallout. Yes. Yeah. Fallout has a lot to do with this too, in terms of world building and not explaining things. Yes, I know there's a video game based on it. I've never played the video games, although I know they're tangentially, I know the background of it. And Fallout is very similar to this. There's a lot of events when we follow our main characters, and they don't explain things. We just are thrown into a situation. But yeah, Shai says, very good timing. Heard two reviews minutes before your stream, one scathing, one interesting. Cool, cool. Caligula says, in Germany, it really is utopian. The normies here will never have the cojones to go against the government. That's how that unfortunate incident was allowed to happen in between 1932 and 1945. Yeah, and this movie, um, first of all, the if you allow me to do this, and you guys are here, um, this movie mentions a number of events and does not explain the after effects. It just starts to state a number of events. For example, here in TV tropes, gotta talk about TV tropes. It mentions a number of uh, the. Let's all get on the same page. So, Civil War is an American epic speculative fiction war film, written and directed by Alex Garland. Set in the near future, the story sees the U.S. being engulfed in a new civil war, with 19 states having seceded from the country. On one side lies the Western forces, a militia group led by the secessionist states, while on the other side are the loyalist states commandeered by the corrupt president. In the middle of this war, a group of journalists go on a dangerous mission to make it to Washington, D.C., as the Western forces geared to attack the Capitol, navigating through a war-torn America. Now, one of the um, there are a number of incidents that are not tied together that lead up to this uh, civil war in this movie. One of them is they call it the Antifa massacre, and they never explain how or why or who. Was it were they massacred or did they cause the massacre? Okay. They also mentioned that drone and airstrikes were leveled against American citizens used internally within the United States. They mentioned that the FBI was disbanded and that journalists were being executed, publicly executed. Now, lastly, the president is taking a third term. And while I hear reviews of this movie saying that they don't explain any of this, what I find a bit horrific by reviewers and those who watched the movie and just kind of shrugged their shoulders is that this is literally what a how a dictatorship comes about. By throwing away the Constitution, and this presidency throws away the Constitution, and they're not saying that the president is bad. They kind of are, but by disbanding the FBI and having drone strikes on American citizens, it could have been in reaction to outside actions, and the president decided to disband the Constitution and take um, a third term, which is not possible within our rules. But what ends up happening is if you throw away the rules, um, when you have no unified rules of behavior of or no rule of law that everyone accepts, the movie is explaining to us, showing us that when there's no overriding rules, individuals will start to make their own rules, and how horrific that would be if you were to go, because the movie is a travel movie. It is not a Civil War movie. We're following our reporters. And every time they come across individuals, like a similar to a post-apocalyptic movie, where we see every post-apocalyptic movie, we see lawlessness. Instead, we come across people who are exhibiting their own rules of law, but we don't understand, following our reporters, what those rules are. And those people are making it up as they go along. And they are deciding that, well, within my world, this is what I feel the rules should be. And that is the horror of the movie. We are seeing through the eyes of reporters, including the reporters themselves, because these are like wartime embedded reporters, and they are teaching this young girl to not have an opinion, that your job is to capture the picture, to capture the moment, and let other people make that opinion. So even our reporters are kind of shitty people, and the movie's filled with these people who, in them internally, they've decided that this is how the world should be. Without a rule of law, I'm making up my own rules of law, and and that is in antithesis to everyone else's rules of law. And that is the horror, and what the movie is definitely an anti-war movie. And I feel that people are not realizing that the reason why a California and a Texas would combine together, everyone's like, "Well, I don't understand why they would get together. It doesn't make any sense." And I'm going, because your president decided to get rid of the Constitution to make a third term. You don't want that to ever happen. You don't want the FBI, our national police, our continental police force, to ever be disbanded. You don't want airstrikes, a political faction of any type having the ability and making the decision to launch airstrikes against American citizens. There is a right and wrong, and the wrong of it is losing our ability to work under the same rules that we've all agreed to resolve our differences. And even if we don't like those rules, and you're, of course, I'm going to show you guys a map here. I'm actually going to show you two maps. Let's see. I will show you the the map created by this is the map of the United States from I got this from Newsweek, and this map is the map of the United States as pertains into the movie. But let me go let you guys see this, and I'll tell you which groups are with which, and then but I need to go to my co-host here. Shai says the interesting review said the point was to prove how divided we really are, not by picking a right or left side. Garland invited scathing criticism from people crucifying him for not picking a side. That's exactly right, because people are expecting that in a civil any war, but even a civil war, that we would know who's right and wrong. And the movie clearly gives us you're not going to be able to find out who's right and wrong. That if we have a civil war, how do you tell who's on your side or not? Do you get questioned? Are you a red sunglass wearing Jesse Plemons scratching their cheek, going like, "So what kind of American are you?" Right? How do you prove who they are or who they aren't? And this movie clearly tells everyone that if we have a civil war, the only thing that you'll be able to do is I want to stay alive, and anyone who's trying to take my life is my enemy, without having any discussions and things. Your shitlord says, I heard they never use the R and D word. Oh, no, no, no. And clearly what they are saying is that even that doesn't matter. That there is no such thing as, if talking the R&D word, Republican, Democrat, even they're saying that even in a civil war, or if we were brought to the point of a civil war, that even those factions would disintegrate into personalized factionism, meaning like our neighborhoods, maybe our neighbors would fractionalize and such. Say says, so the regular army soldiers were still protecting the president. At the time of the movie, there are some soldiers, but most of it was Secret Service who are loyal to the presidency. So within the United States, the Secret Service is its own protective service for the president, and they do have access to military weaponry, although most of the time we see them dressed in dark suits with the little earbuds. That's kind of our idea of the Secret Service, and those are the majority of the defenders in Washington D.C. So yeah. Yeah. Deadman says there's also the fact that the Antifa massacre was 20 years ago. Yeah. Yes. That this is an alternate. This is an alternate future. So and it is. They don't tell you what year this happens. And this incident, whatever that incident may be, for example, you could very easily express the incidents expressed in the movie, the Antifa massacre, the launching of airstrikes against American citizens, the killing of the execution of sorry reporters in the public. And these incidences could actually be attributed not to the president, but to the secessionist states. That's possible. You could read it that way in this movie, and that the president, as a reaction to these things, has gotten rid of the Constitution, established kind of a military order, and decided that this is what's necessary to bring order. You could read it that way. The reason why most individuals who watch the movie would say no is because our reporters end up getting embedded within the rebel forces, the WF, known as the Western forces, and they are not threatened with murder. So apparently the presidential side is the one killing the journalists. Now we don't know why, but the point of the movie is that incidences leading up to this have become the norm, and it has fractionalized the United States. So taking a look at this map here, we have the darkest states. They look like they are blue. Let's see if I can make this a little. I guess I don't have to make it that much bigger. But let's see. There we go. So We have ourselves the blue states, and the blue states are known as the Florida Alliance. And there's something world building that I love about maps, or alternate history maps that I love about world building, tabletop role playing world building. And I'm going to show you another map from an old miniatures game known as Crimson Sky that does a similar thing that I find really cool. But anyway, these blue states are known as the Florida Alliance, and Florida Alliance basically has seceded from the United States. And then we have ourselves these purple states, the vast majority of these states, and these are known as the loyalist states. And I would say that in the movie they don't tell you why they are loyal to the president. Some of the I imagine that these states are in contention. That if if red and blue, the R and Ds are against each other, I could see them being in contention in many of these states. That they're loyal to the president simply because they are loyal to the rule of law, and that if there is a president, then they are loyal to that, or they haven't picked a side, and because they haven't picked a side, they are literally just loyalists. We're working off the old rules until we come up with new rules. Um, the pink, these are the two major factions. The California and Texas are funding the WF, which is known as the Western Forces. I almost want to say Western Front, and I think they are making clear allusions to this. Alex Garland is writing clear allusions to this, that these are the Western forces. And of course, as people watching the movie, they're like, well, they wouldn't work together. And I believe they are trying to get across the idea that today we can't imagine those two states ever working together. But I contend that yes, they would, if both sides who are antithetical to each other feel that there's something far more important, and that we can both hate each other and not agree on how a country should be ruled, but despite the fact that we can't agree with each other, there's one thing, and that is we can never get rid of the rule of law. So they are working together to literally murder kill the president and take out the president and their entourage. And in the movie, we do see that the Western forces aren't necessarily the air quotes good guys in this situation. And lastly, up here in the orange, the northwestern part of this is known as the New People's Army. I think they're also called the Pacific Maoist or something, or the Pacific Northwest Maoist, or I can't remember the exact term, and they only mentioned it once. But you get the idea that China, that they have either or both seceded from the United States and have joined China, or that China has influenced them with monies and food and resources, and maybe even a different monetary value, because the American dollar has the United States dollar has tanked into the toilet, and that they have seceded and joined or made a treaty with China. So they're known as the New People's Army. And I like maps like these are fun maps. Now I'm going to show you and put up another map, and then we'll get into what you guys have to say. Um, let's see if this map did show. Come on, share the other map. Oh, it's not switching over. Come on. All right, all right. Damn Luddite. Yes, I want this one. Yes, yes, computer. I want this map. There we go. Yeah. I want this map. And it's a little difficult to see this, but this is a pretty good. This pretty fun. This is a pretty fun map here. Yeah, let's get back here. All right, so let's get back into what you guys have to say. Um, mm, 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 mm. Says, wow, these journalists were following the one rule of journalism I can remember from my one semester in college. There are a number of situations where our journalists that are following that they are trying to make a trip from where they are at in New York to Washington D.C. And it's normally in a straight line, a very short trip, but they have to circumnavigate through a lot of horrors to get there. They basically have to triple the time it takes to get there. and they desperately want to interview the president. They want to get the last interview with the president before the Western forces arrive and either succeed in taking out the president and the entourage, or they fail, and they want to be there. And there are a number of incidents where these reporters do nothing to alleviate the horrors that are going around them. All they do is stick their cameras and their faces in. People are literally dying around them, and they do not lift a hand for any reason, which does make us feel like, ooh, like, put the camera down and help these people, you assholes. And so really it does express this idea that, wow, they are kind of cold. And while you do understand their reasoning for being that way, it is very much a supplant your humanity to get a goal done. And this movie very much shows how when you crush down your humanity to achieve a particular goal, that in and of itself is a bit of a destruction. um yeah, Dead Man. Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah. it This is alternate history when it comes to, I think, I can't remember what I'm going to say Antifa stands for, anti-fascist, but I'm not exactly certain. Tay says, okay, Secret Service in our revolution, even they turned on the president and went nice and quick and clean. The Civil War was everybody versus the dictator. It might have gotten to that point. It may, they kind of hint, because by the end of the movie, there aren't many people left, but do get to that point. Shai says, Maoist sounds like my hometown. The U of M had a Maoist newspaper. Everybody notes, and that was back in the 90s. Really, I'm not making this up. Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. And I meant the rule about trying to be an objective, unbiased as possible. Okay. Mike says, where's that map from? Okay. Be more specific with either map, and I'll let you know. Well, okay. The purple, the map from the movie Civil War. I received that. I got that from newsweek.com. And if you go to newsweek.com, click Civil War movie, Western forces, loyalist states, Florida Alliance, New People's Army, you'll find it. So just type, if you just Google search Civil War map, and then and Newsweek comes up. They have an interactive map. I just captured the images of it, but there's an actual interactive map where it floats over each of the states, and it just tells you the name of the state, and then tells you what they're aligned with. But you can, if you know any geography, you'll understand what that's from. This other map that I have presented in front of you, this map comes from a game known as yeah, Drew says yes. Antifa stands for anti-fascist. Yep. Oh, and this current map, which we're going to get into, this current map is from a game. This is an old, I want to say it's mid 2000s, and this map is from a game known as Crimson Skies, and it was a collectibles miniatures game about biplanes and prop planes, and you fly across the shattered United States. And the history of it is that during the Depression, the United States shattered in 1920s, and a highway system was never made. So the only way to get from place to place was with planes, prop planes with propellers, and airships and things of that nature. And if I can zero in on going from the East Coast to the West Coast in this map, we have these are different factions you can um, uh, belong to, so that you have a miniatures air battle game. And the miniatures are kind of cool, but I really like the background to it. It's the background for a miniatures game with planes had a lot more detail than it needed to be, and I liked it. So of course we had Republic of Quebec, Ontario, Protectorate of Ontario, the Maritime provinces, because Canada, of course, has to deal with this as well. We have the Atlantic Coalition. I'm hovering over that. The Empire State. which is kind of cool. The Outer Banks, we have Appalachia, the industrial states. I'm living over here in the industrial states here. I used to live um, in the tri-state area, now known as the Empire State. We have down here in the South, Dixie, and then the Bahamas, even below that, the islands there. Louisiana became its own protectorate. Going into the middle of the United States, we do have Texas, the protectorate of Oklahoma, and the Republic of Texas. And then we go a little bit north of that. We have the People's Collective. The People's Collective is not Maoist centered, it is more indigenous peoples centered. And if we look at this map, it actually stretches up into what was used to be Canada. Or yes, we have the Lakota Territory, another indigenous peoples region. We go to the north, up to the northwest. We have Pacifica and the territories, and they kind of hint that the territories are a bit isolationist. Of course, we have just the desert, and where Nevada and such it's just called the desert. We have Colorado, the Colorado seat, I believe, or states. We have the Navajo Nation. We have Arazo, Arizo. What was it called? We have the Nation of Hollywood as well, and then of course we have the United States of Mexico. And but anyway, this is a map, and it says here the sovereign states of North America, political boundaries, and major Zeppelin routes from and this is dated 1937. And this is a world building map. And again, uh, much like Civil War, this is a map of a shattered United States. And I really like this map, and didn't get a chance to really delve into the game. I remember I still have the miniatures from this game, and we as friends were trying to make a role playing out game out of it, and it just never got that far, which is a little bit sad, a little bit sad. So, boop, 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 boop. So let me turn this off here, or let me just move this over so I can have that. More to what you guys are saying. Deadman says Antifa is in its third iteration. The first iteration that brought Mussolini into power in the 1930s. The second iteration, 1990s, that opposed U.S. militarily intervening in every country. Yeah. And the latest iteration created in the 2010s, yep, to oppose U.S. no military intervening in countries around the world. Yep. And that always goes back and forth here in the States about interventionism, because we tend to be a bit isolated from the rest of the world. So when we say across the pond and that kind of thing, when the United States reaches its hand out, we aren't neighbors in the classic sense of our borders bordering on someone else, except of course Canada and Mexico. It requires us, when we intervene, to go across the pond to do so. And there's many people who are saying like, F getting involved in other people, let's stay to ourselves. So it's isolationism versus world police forcing kind of thing, and we always vacillate back and forth. Oh wow, Scheiss is bringing up how it is in Germany. And I don't know if you would. It's that wasn't the name given to it. It was just people that were anti-war movements. That's all. And there's plenty of people who are anti-war movement. It had always been that way, and for different reasons, right? It's sometimes the reasoning is due to sometimes it's philosophical, sometimes it's economic, other times it's just human cost of a thing, and sometimes it's just uh, based on attention. If you the idea that you don't want to spread your attention too thin. Mike Deadman says Microsoft took over the IP and released a series of PC games. They sure did, where you can fly a plane, fight enemies deploying from a blimp. Yep. It did come into a PC game, well away from the collectibles miniatures game. But I always thought it would just be really cool. It's ripe for for adventure. I just don't know how I would do it, but yeah. Yeah, Taste But Out says People's Collective. That's going to be the whole world before long. I don't know. You're always going to get people who are antithetical to a movement. So getting one idealism to spread across the world is pretty difficult. But yeah, yeah. So now so that's my first. This is my first contention about Civil War, and this is going to come into tabletop role playing more in science fiction here. So allow me to hard segue, and that is that sometimes you don't need to explain everything. And I find that some people who are dismissive of this movie are dismissive because the movie doesn't clearly state the everyone's position. And I believe the horror of this dystopian future in Civil War is that you won't be able to find out or clearly discern who is right and who is wrong. And as not only do we find that there are characters who are making decisions for or against what's going on in this movie, Civil War, but we even have people who are deciding not to get involved. And even that position is a position. When I think there was I remember having a conversation, it didn't go very badly, but I remember having a conversation with someone about role playing games, and someone was just like, you know, talking about like wokeism and role playing games and blah blah blah, and they were like, they're trying to make it political, and I was like, well, it's not. Everything isn't the definition of politics, but I said not making a decision is a decision unto itself. So whether a game decides to put in a blurb about inclusion or not, choosing not to is a decision, and that goes towards what the game is about and what the designers are intending the game to be about. So saying that you don't want a game to be inclusive in and of itself is not being neutral. It's making a decision and you're claiming it's neutral, but others don't necessarily have to claim that you are neutral. And so this movie it's a very clear statement on, if we were to have a civil war, we would be fighting against our neighbors. And when you're do the road trip, and we've seen road trip movies where it's a series of horrific or fun or comedic or romantic events that just happen one after another. As we during the road trip, we as a new event happens, more is revealed from our road trip entourage. That also during the road trip, it is revealed that every time they come upon a new group of people or a community, or they travel along and they see destruction and things like that, there's always the question: who are you? What are you? How dangerous are you? What's your point? What do you want? What do you want from us? Um, it's the whole nine yards. Do you even respect who we are as journalists? Do you accept the rule of law that we all accept, that journalism and the press itself? You see the classic, they're literally driving in an SUV that says press on it, and they are unarmed, and that their job is to be embedded into some of the horrors that they see to capture those moments. Um, Here in the States, we normally we have had a generational respect of the press, and when you don't do that, that rule of law goes away, then all the rules are broken. So and then people will make that stuff up on their own, and the confusion that people have in the movie that it doesn't state that is the movie. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there, Shy Squad. You're talking to Dead Man. Says I was one of those war guys ever since the Gulf War. I just never heard the Antifa apply to American protesters until much later. And again, much like when we talk about like governments have people have titles that don't necessarily apply to them. It's the same thing. I think the same thing is here, right? Like you end up getting you end up getting labels, and the label is applied to a larger group of people than it probably applies to. And we tend to do that because we need to define, like in this movie Civil War, there are individuals who are making definitions of a thing, and their reasoning for their definition in their own head Jesse Plemons talking about what kind of American are you. We understand the tension is so high when he asked that question. The answer to that question is so it's so vaporware. It's so pie in the sky. You're like, there's no way I can answer this question because you're not even giving me the rationality of what your questioning applies to. What do you mean by that? Right? And even today we have people that have labels and they apply labels to other people, and you're like, I don't even think you understand what that label means, or you're applying that label to other people. So this movie clearly states that. Yeah, too many people want to be spoon-fed with everything. Ambiguity is only something the cool kids can handle. And it's not even just the ambiguity of it. I think they're missing that the ambiguity is the movie. It's not just ambiguous. I feel like the well, first of all, they clearly tell us that there are horrible things happening. Dissolution of the Constitution, a president in their third term, the execution of journalists, the bombing of American citizens, the Antifa massacre, right? So these are all things that in the movie um, are given to us as information, and there's no counter to that. So we are to assume that these things really did happen. Now, when we are told this is these are historical events that lead up to this current civil war, and no matter who's to blame for it, this is real history in the context of this movie. So if I'm living in this movie and living in this time, these are things that are really happening. Oh, there is one other thing. Inflation went so high that our main characters go to get gas, fill up their SUV, and of course there are like people armed at the gas station, and the guy says, I'm sorry, our main character, one of our main characters says, how much gas can we get for $300? And he says, 300 US? You can get two sandwiches, ham or cheese, for $300. And then she says, no, 300 Canadian. And he kind of like begrudgingly is like, yeah, you can get some gas. Right. And clearly the economy has tanked because the United States is shattered, and people's homes are getting burnt out, and everyone's politically they're separating and things like that. There's unemployment, I'm sure, but they don't explain any of that. And that ambiguity is to me is the fuel for civil war, and it doesn't need to be explained whose side it's on. It feels like people want to know who's the good guy and bad guy. I feel very uncomfortable in this movie with following our main characters, realizing that I don't know around the next corner, should I root for them or should I be against them? And clearly the movie shows you that neither rooting for them or against them is either good or bad. It's just like, ooh. Yeah, DBJ says the People's Collective is what any self-respecting totalitarian dictator aspires to. Yeah, self-respecting dictator, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Shitlord says here, I'm assuming Germany, is mostly a set of stickers you see in bathrooms and on street signs. See, sometimes things get absorbed as well, to represent another type of behavior. So, for example, I remember back in my heyday, I'm an 80s, 90s kid. I was 10 when it was the 80s. So I say 15 years is kind of our childhood, from like 10 to 25. And Public Enemy, the Public Enemy came out with an album, and one of the album's name was Fear of a Black Planet, and it had a cover of uh, you know a silhouette with a sniper on it, and that album, that image, and even some of the songs were absorbed into um, the IRA, and in its conflict with at that time in the 90s, it's still ongoing conflict with England. So yeah, he's so funny. Shai says, yeah, Drew, don't forget nuance. Ambiguity and nuance are clear code words for you must be a crypto fascist if you believe there's more than just good versus evil. Yeah, there's a bit of that. Yeah, and Deadman says, careful, shitlords. The Antifa stickers are very similar to the anarchist stickers. They sure are. Yeah. And clearly in this movie, there are anarchistic factions, and you're going, yeah, even that doesn't work, right? And the movie doesn't, when someone says the movie doesn't pick a side, um, it clearly shows us that when we are operating without a clear code of ethics and morality, that even the heroes we're following, when we follow our main characters, are embedded journalists, they're following the WF, the Western Forces. And the Western Forces, the last 20 minutes of this movie are gorgeous and loud, and it is brilliantly set up as some are claiming it's close to the Saving Private Ryan opening scene, the storming of Normandy Beach. I don't believe it's that good, I guess because of the budget, but it's up there as a war slash anti-war action thriller progress trying to get to the presidency. And it is great. But even when we're following them, you would think, oh, well, I guess they're the good guys, right? We're following them. The reporters are with them. And when we get to this part of the movie, part of us is scratching our head like, wait a minute. These reporters are kind of assholes. Like, they're literally taking people who are dying in front of them and not lifting a hand. And we're following, forces. And in the midst of battle, are there innocent people who are putting their hands up going like, please don't shoot me, and getting a bullet in the head? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, our heroes are just like are like murder killers. Like, they're not going, we're going to arrest you, because there's no rule of law any longer. And this is what would happen if the movie is suggesting that if we get rid of the rule of law, that as a overriding, if the United States, all of us said, we don't believe in the like money, if we don't believe in the value of this thing, this collective values, if we don't believe in it and we just go, it doesn't apply to me because this individual or these individuals in power that we've elected, their authority over me doesn't count, then it breaks down into, okay, well, then that means you're going to make your own decision. And where does that leave the rest of us? Yeah. Shitlord says Public Enemy was awesome. I just wish they had more influential German hip hop. Yeah, during this time, I'm an old school hip hop fan. I'm a grognard of that. So we've gone this far without talking too much about tabletop role playing games. I'm going to bring up this map again for Crimson Skies, and I got this map from, where did I get this Crimson Skies? I guess I just typed in it, Crimson Skies map. You can, I'm sure you guys can find it out there. It's not a role playing game; it is a miniatures game, but this map in general, and I hope you can see my little fisty thing moving all over this map. Like role playing games, a lot of times our maps tell us what our world is like. And going further into hard science fiction, it's not just maps of the United States. I feel like when it comes to space habitats, leaving Earth to go to Mars and Luna, or technically our Earth is called Terra. It's more of an aquatic world, but anyway, we'll talk about that much later, about Obsidian Star and things like that. But in Obsidian Star, and what I think sometimes can be lost in hard science fiction, is that when we start to separate ourselves and the rule of law no longer applies to us because we've moved out. We are a new generation of people that are colonizing the world. We will take with us what we think is important. And how interesting it would be for our player characters, our stars, to arrive at different habitats, hollowed out asteroids, spinning spindles, O'Neill cylinders, hard planetary surfaces, and stellar desics, geodesics, deep aquatic tethered realms or flotillas, orbital rings, and geosynchronous, geosyncratic space stations in geosynchronous orbit, or in the places that are orbiting in the L4 and L5 gravity stable regions in our solar system. All these places, they may come across places where Star's rule of law may not apply to this new place, and figuring it out, like much like our television shows, we talked about like Quantum Leap and Sliders, and some of these television shows embody the we are going someplace new. That was a strange noise. We're going someplace new, and we don't know what the rules of engagement are. And while the rules of engagement might be close to what we recognize, there might be something different. Star Trek does the exact same thing. Um, they travel to someplace new, and when they arrive in this new location, they look around and everything seems normal. The Orville is another television show that kind of did a similar thing. Wow, it looks really kind of normal, except for, and then all of a sudden, the except for is smacked in their faces, and they have to figure out how the hell do we get the hell out of here? And I, much like this Crimson Skies map, um, I like the idea, like, what is Texas? How is Texas different than the People's Collective versus Dixie versus the what is the what's the name of this place versus Mexico or Hollywood or the Empire State? Like, what are these places like in um in opposition to what I think they would be like? Because this is a different speculative fiction type of thing, and I like that. Let's see, okay. Kalia says, okay, bring it back to RPGs. The generation ship faces some serious decision. There's a disagreement. They split off into factions. One side shoots a hole in the ship, and boom, your Obsidian Civil War. Hell's yes. Yeah. You are so right. You're so right there, Caligulus. And I kind of like that in a dark way. I like the idea of a generation ship or a space hab of uh, 10,000 settlers have been there and we've lost communication. And when the PCs arrive, everyone's got this like plastic smile on their face. And you're like, well, why? And what does that mean? Where does that go? And it always means that around every corner, like this movie, Civil War, not only, it's not just dystopian in the fact that there's no law, but the individuals in this movie have decided what their own laws are. And how do we navigate, even socially or economically, as we're shown in this movie, or politically, or physically in combat and such? How do we navigate between these individuals when we are first introduced to them? What is that first impression like? And will we even survive the first impression? Or there might be 15 impressions and we realize that there's something dark going on here, and we should have been paying attention to uh, this new way of life. Um, are you listing locations where Civil War wouldn't last past the first show, first shot? Oh, look, wouldn't last past the first shot. I don't know. Maybe, maybe. I suppose the in this movie Civil War doesn't tell you when it started, and the end of the movie doesn't tell you it's going to end either, because even by the end of the movie, and yes, it does come to a specific conclusion at the end of the movie. It the this Let's get back to this map here. I'm going to have to. No, it's not. It's not going to let me do it. Mm-mm. Let's see if we can. Come on back. There we go. Share this out here again. This map in Civil War, you're never get sorry if you're hoping that the end of the movie tells you what happens. Like, they don't do the black screen with the white letters that tells you, oh, in 37 years this happens, or this political individual steps up and does a thing. They don't tell you whether the rest of the nation is resolved, whether it's organized again. You can presume at the end of the movie what would happen, but that presumption, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I've seen that before, Dead Man. Yeah, the anarchist stickers are the capital A in a circle, kind of like that. The what's the scrawled A. A version of that was used in The Expanse. To be honest with you, the OPA, they did the same thing. There was the OPA, and the big A was scrawled in there. Yep, yep. Civil War canceled after the first pilot. Sounds so current. Yeah. Everyone's it's a real world Civil War. You canceled in the first season? Damn. I was enjoying this. Oh man. Yeah, Shitlord says, "Oh yeah, we're not talking about the same thing then. The circle." Okay, yeah. Yep. Civil War falls victim to cancel culture. Actress said some conservative rhetoric in an interview, and it was all over. Civil War was canceled. Peace broke out. Peace broke out. That's funny. Yeah, I did hear that they did not do a terribly great job of getting you invested in individual main characters, but whatever. True, because the people that we're following are okay. There's a need for embedded wartime journalists. And as depicted by our main characters, one of them really clearly states that they were hoping that being an embedded war journalist would prevent this from happening. That being a war journalist overseas, and we get some flashbacks of this individual recording some pretty horrific events overseas. And when she comes back to the U.S., she comes back to the States, she's pretty burnt out, and she's just like, I was hoping that my job in expressing this would never come back to the States. And if I could add some of my own editorialism, we today have people who are actively participating in and desiring of a civil war, an armed conflict. They are expecting it. They almost hope it happens as a prepper, as that something like this would happen, and that they are truly prepared for a thing. We have people shooting people because of the color of their skin simply for knocking on their door or ringing their doorbell or turning the wrong way, going in the wrong direction and doing a U-turn in their driveway to go back and just getting fired at through their door because of the fear that in their head that the rule of law is broken and they are making their own decisions on what they feel the rule of law should be. It's not just paranoia. It is the world as I know it is shattering, and I need to resolve myself in terms of what the world should be. And we are going through that today, violently. While they are small groups, these individuals, school shootings, mall shootings, spree shooters and killers and things like that here in the States, I feel they believe that they are in this fictional future of the Civil War is in their heads currently today. So, oh shit, hey non, yeah. At least Pandemic was popular enough to get 2 seasons and a movie. Oh shit, yes, and they've been trying to get some reboots going on, requels, reboots. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Shai says, so can we talk about Doomsday prepping already? Prepping for Civil War with a hard sci-fi Cthulhu? Hey, that's going to be tomorrow. Yeah, that will be tomorrow. So, do I like this movie? I love this movie because for me it brings up a lot of questions, and while I don't disagree with the opinions of people who, if you see the movie and that's your opinion, that is your opinion. Whatever, it's all subjective. But but I will say that I feel that the very questions, the unanswered questions that people have about the movie is the movie itself, and that we are supposed to be talking about those unanswered questions because that is supposed to be the we are supposed to go, wow, I don't know how I would navigate this world. But to be more specific about these characters that we're following, that and not getting invested in them, embedded war journalists, imagine if something horrific happens to you or your family or in your community, and there's like individuals, how many times have we seen people pull out their cell phones instead of helping someone in a car wreck or an older person that fell in the street or a person getting robbed or whatever. And what does somebody do? They pull out their cell phones. These embedded journalists are doing the exact same thing. Yet their job is to do that. And do we respect them for doing that? Do we feel makes us feel a little bit cold and turn our stomach when someone pulls out their camera and wants to get a zoom angle while someone's bleeding out or got shot in the head or is being tortured or something? Maybe we might think a little bit differently of them, which is why I can understand someone with a pretty high ethic and morality got you know ethics and morality in their tank going like, I don't know if I can respect you for doing what you're doing, yet their job is very important. And how important do we think the capturing of that is? Now in the movie, there's something that bothers me. I have to tell you, there I didn't say the movie's perfect. We have a character in the movie who is supposed to be a journalist. So we have photographers and we have journalists. And I feel it was a lost opportunity because one of our journalists pretends to be a writer, and I never saw an ink pen, a pad of paper, a recording device, nothing. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You're running around in a t-shirt? Dude, where's your ink? Like, aren't you supposed to be writing things down? Don't you have questions? Like, flip to the page with your expert questions. Like, what? You're not. That bothered me a little bit. I was like, is he supposed to be doing this from memory or something? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, look, I wouldn't say the world's gonna end tomorrow, but I do got this water filter I wanna sell you. Yeah, yeah. Capitalizing on the preppers and, capitalizing on the fear mongering. Yeah, fear sells. Fear is a great, um fear sells itself. Fear, much like, dopamine, is like a top 3 drug. Shai says, "Writers with nothing to write with? Now I have to see this. Look, right in front. I got to show you a picture of myself. I'm not a journalist, but I'm an RPG person. I have notebooks and ink pens and notebooks and RPG stuff, cards. Um, there's a video camera here. I've got an extra hard drive. I've got I mean, that's me, and I'm a nobody. Like this dude should have like 50 pens, a recording, 3 recording devices. I was like, you're in a war zone, dude. You should be recording everything to write it down. It just bothered me. That part of it bothered me. The acting, superb. The cinematography, top notch. The sound design, both deafening and overwhelming in a good way to throw us into peace and tranquility, and we get beautiful scenes of peace and tranquility along our road trip, and then boom, smacked into death and destruction, um, amongst humanity and this dystopian post-apocalyptic type of or more dystopian than post-apocalyptic, but an active apocalyptic world, and it is very jarring. There's a part where there's a horror like jump scare because of the sound design, and it really rocked my world. I was just like, what the hell? Like, damn. It went from like 2 decibels to 180, like boom, and it pulls you right into it. And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. It shocked me too. So yep. Anon says, now I understand how these Lovecraft protagonists were able to write everything down right to the end from memory. Yeah. For so YouTube short PG, main source of YouTube entertainment was in the fact that Doomsday Preppers, they they bummed that 14 years of. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember all the Doomsday Prepper television shows, and YouTube has a an undercurrent of prepping. But well, it's like I'm in the jungle. I'm going to make my own swimming pool kind of things. Yeah. Oh, you're so funny. Yeah. Yeah, they bummed that 14 years are going by and we still ain't got. Yeah, we still haven't got shit right. It was just still like we're just like shit. We're still going at, and that's why Civil War is uncomfortable. The movie is so uncomfortable for us because, like these shattered United States, it does make us think that where we live, um, despite the fact that this map shows clear delineations, within these delineations, like I live right here. Well, let's see if I can put my little. There we go. I live right here in Central Ohio, but I was born and raised on the playground. We spent most of my day. Anyway, what they call a tri-state area. So we have like Pennsylvania, Jersey, and this sliver right here is Delaware. But even amongst these regions, there's a world of difference just traveling 500 miles, 600 miles, I think. 500 anyway. The 8-hour drive for myself, and a little less than to Ohio. And then I've got family. If I go straight down south, I've got family that lives like right about here in Georgia. And traveling from Ohio to Kentucky through Tennessee into Georgia, you talk about a different world. Like our states are just as big and bigger than other whole nations and countries. And it very much feels that way. So when the United States shatters, Texas is its own country. It has its own power grid. They have their own police force known as Texas Rangers, and probably a pretty sizable military with very willing people in those militaries. So the fact that in California's got a lot of resources in it as well. So the fact that something like that could happen, to me, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Anon. All you have to do is cut what is it? Copy and paste that over like 400 pages and you're done. The horror is beyond our comprehension, indescribable, also unnameable. It is a thing that forever my burns into my brain, yet I cannot describe the thing that I have seen. It is a sound unlike any other. Right? Thanks, Lovecraft, you asshole. Yeah, just think how normal everything was back in 2010. None of the wars, political intrigue, comic mass rioting, and crazy shit that went down since then has been nearly enough to break the system. Yeah, we're always on the verge of breaking a system, and we're pretty adaptable. Human beings are pretty damn adaptable, um, unless like here in the United States, the movie is very much. If I wanted to say them before we get out of here, and lastly, because two things before we get out of here. One is, um, as far as this movie goes, and as brilliantly as it was filmed and created and such, I believe it on purpose. Alex Garland is a big questions kind of individual. Ex Machina. Let's see, Alex Garland. Um, let's see what some other things he's done. What has he written? Big question shit. 28 Days Later. Um, there we go. 28 Days Later. Screenplay for Halo. Sunshine. 28 Weeks Later. Wrote the script for Dread, an adaptation of the Judge Dredd comic book series. Ex Machina. Annihilation. A movie called Men. Bunch of A24 type stuff. He's doing 28 Years Later. So big questions. And I feel like he does make a point. I believe that this movie is an anti-war movie. And I also think that he's telling us that if we all collectively decide that the rules we live under don't matter any longer, that we would break into factionalism, very violent and horrific factionalism. Yeah, human beings are adaptable and nutritious. Put your fangs away there, taste. uh, yeah, thanks, Ada. Your journal entry is going straight to my new song. Yeah, it is undescribable. Yeah, Anon says, ironically, I think Texas would ally with Mexico in the case of an actual civil war. Um, yeah, Texas has always been Texans are proud of the "we're going to secede from the rest of the United States" kind of talk. Like that's a Texas thing. That literally is a Texas thing. If you go there and you have different conversations with people, some very comedic and fun, others very serious and like, you know, I dare you to take my gun away from my cold dead fingers because it's not going to happen kind of talk. Despite the fact that a lot of the other mid states think the exact same way, Texas is very not only large enough and has the resources, but they are very proactive in their um, anti Washington, anti Washington D.C., anti California, hippie, like very much anti that, and as well as California being the proverbial cesspool of freedom and even socialism and things like that. And that's why those two states are like antithetical to each other, and that's why so many people when they watch the movie they can't get past the fact that they teamed up together. But so yeah, I think Alex Garland's movie Civil War is very much a movie about rules and laws and how those rules and laws can help us um, put us on the same page when our ethics and morality kind of don't mesh quite together. We at least have a common ground to have a simple and civil discussions about the way we want to lead our lives into the future and for our ancestors. In science fiction, I think this broken map of the United States is what, and I think it would be great for us to, for tabletop role playing, to embrace the fact that when players go to different places, that they may not know what the rules are, even if they think they know what the rules are. Imagine a intergalactic imperium or empire or hegemony. What are some other names? Republic or whatever. When they go to different places, do are they aware that the rules and the people that live there, because of time and distance and goals and desires, that it is exactly what they think it is? Or do people have different values here? And Star Trek very much embraced this idea as well, that maybe we don't know what the value system is, and we need to be careful. And do we embrace their new value system? Do we have open conflict because their value system is different? Or do we tuck tail and run and go, let's never come back here again? Shai says, how much do these stereotypes vis-a-vis Cali, Texas, etc., actually play out in real life? Oh shit, that in and of itself is that's a whole genre of podcasting, political podcasting. You will ever you, there. There's no way to answer that in 2 minutes, let alone years. It's yeah. Yes, Texas would seek aid from Mexico, California, Oregon, Washington would seek aid from China. And Washington would seek aid from China. Yeah. Ooh, dead man. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Hey, we live in a capitalist society. Who's got the money? We'll ignore all the bad stuff. Everyone's got a price. Yeah, if Republic is in the name, you know it's going to be. No, it's going to be named. Yeah, yeah. If Republic is in the name, you know it's going to be a name. Yep. Yeah. If you put Republic in it, or Empire, or Imperium, or I can't think of some other. I guess I could type in. Let's see. Let's look for. Let's type in Imperium uh, synonym. Let's look up some synonyms for these. Let's do it the very first one, thesaurus.com. Sovereignty, I forgot that. Yes, sovereignty. Jurisdiction isn't right, but birthrights, ascendancies are good. Regency sounds a little small. I did say hegemony. Dominion's another good one. Never heard of a diadem or diadem. We've heard of birthrights before, but that's more supremacies we've heard of, superpowers, lordships, more, we've heard of some of those. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Paramountsy. I like that. Yeah, I like some of these. I love a good thesaurus. But anyway, thank you very much, guys, for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. I know. Yes, autocorrect. DBJ is just wondering. Everybody I ever met from every region that has some political stereotype attached to it was nothing like what they're supposed to be. That's another thing. That's another thing that would like to mention the fact that you mentioned that. Um, there's an assumption by people who see this movie that Californians and Texans are stereotypically opposed to each other. And the point is that when people are from those places, oh, Republican in name, gotta be lame. Yeah, gotta be lame. Yes, yes, you are absolutely right. Because they will throw Republic in the name because that's the thing. Um, but yes, you are absolutely correct, there, Hunt, that you know, most people are not what they're like where they're from, right? You know what I mean? And it's funny. Anon says, indeed, the CCP already has its claws in California deeper than most think. Uh, kind of our own fault, right? You know, money, rule of law gone, money rules everything, cash rules everything. And we can get mad about that, except that, there's always like, well, except for me, except for I. Let So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for allowing me to do this movie review because it's an earwig and it's in my head. And so of course when things like that happen, I got to share it with everybody else. But also, yeah, got to get out of this place. Don't know if I'll ever get back except for tomorrow. And we're going to talk about Cthulhu and Lovecraftian systems and all that kind of stuff. F Lovecraft, asshole. Whether love, sorry, editory, whether Lovecraft was racist or not, and came from the era whether racism and exceptionalism and racial superiority, uh, national superiority was a thing. Uh, the point is that this person benefited from that, and so people who believe in it or not doesn't matter to me. If you uh, deign to make money by promoting a thought process and behavior that you're at the top of the food chain and everyone else is a savage and below you, F you. And I'm going to stick by that. So, yeah, we will talk about Cthulhu. Side note, I love like Eldritch Horror. Makes me a hypocrite, but at least I know it. So, guys, have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow. If you've gone this long, please do the damn thing. Please like, share, subscribe, be notified, make comments, do all the damn thing. But more importantly, stop by 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't know what time it will be in your neck of the woods, across the pond, or whatever. But please take the opportunity to stop by and give me some fuel and feedback because you guys are brilliant. That's how this channel has its own brilliance in our own niche area to allow you guys to express yourselves. So, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace, tranquility.